This is going to be a bit of a different video for me. I haven't made really any sort of videos about myself, like on a real personal level, in a while. I think I was wearing this shirt the last time I did one of those. We're gonna jump into it. It might get a bit heavy. I have a script here. I don't know how close to the script I'm gonna stay. But if you could stick it out for the whole thing, I would definitely appreciate it. So it's Pride Month right now, and obviously that's great. I think it's fantastic that this opportunity exists for LGBTQ plus folks to express to themselves and to friends and family and to everybody else and the rest of the world that they're unashamed of who they are. And it's a real testament to the way that large groups of people in our society have really come around on the gay issue and on the queer issue in general and on the trans issue. And obviously there's still a lot of progress to be made. We're not nearly there yet, but it's just amazing to see people come together in the face of such overwhelming adversity. And this is really where I come in, and it's really the crux of what I want to talk about today. So my first year of high school, I was briefly involved with my high school's GSA chapter, and that involvement didn't really last long. No offense to the GSA, I just got really busy with music and trying to keep my head afloat with academics and all that, and I didn't really have the time. But sophomore year 2012, on National Coming Out Day on October 11th, we all designed shirts and wore them around in support of LGBT pride and all that sort of stuff. And my shirt had this symbol that I'm going to put on screen right now. Some of you might know what this is. This is the symbol of straight allyship, and that is what I felt comfortable with identifying as, at the time, was a straight ally. But I realized in the months afterward that that was probably a bit of a lie. Now, unlike other stories you might hear of people coming to terms with their queer identity, this isn't one of those I knew from when I was a little kid that I didn't fit in and something felt different the whole time. It's not. I only really had the revelation when I was 15. I was already a sophomore in high school, and all of a sudden I was identifying as bisexual by that December. I came out in the worst way possible, through a Facebook status. I didn't even sit my parents down and tell them or anything. I just came out to everybody at once because I was super anxious. I didn't think my struggle with coming to terms with it warranted the attention of really sitting them down and just being like, hey, I have something to tell you. And when they found out that I had come out in this way, they weren't terribly pleased, understandably so. I mean, they were fine with me being not straight, but they just didn't really appreciate the tactics and didn't really want me to have exposed myself to that many people at one time. And ever since then, I've never really talked about that sort of thing with them or my family or even a lot of my friends. I mean, a lot of them know. Most of them know. It just doesn't come up. Not that it has to, but I don't think it's ever really formed a core part of my identity. Since coming out as bisexual back then, I've had long thoughts on whether that's even accurate, and I've thought maybe I'm pansexual, or maybe I'm just heteroflexible, or any other number of things. And on top of that, I've had an even longer think about my gender identity. What I didn't mention before about being a sophomore in high school is that I was a brony for that year. And that was something that also ended quickly and for good reason. But I will say that being a fan of that show, it taught me a valuable lesson in sort of rethinking gender and gender roles and stereotypes that I think really aided me when I was becoming more sympathetic to social justice causes later on. And, you know, I've never really been the most macho, masculine person, despite my deep voice and my love of metal music and my beard, my patchy beard. Recently, I've started to be a bit more in touch with the feminine aspects of my personality, which I think are probably just as strong as the masculine parts on some days. And of course, assigning feminine and masculine to these things is reductive, and I'm only doing it because society says I should view my fashion sense and the way I carry myself as effeminate, and my choice to sport this half-assed attempt of a beard as masculine. But sometimes society's just right. Sometimes society's just right. In my senior year of high school, I started to get pretty adamant about identifying as gender queer, and I did for a little bit, but only on a very personal level. The only people that knew were just a few close friends, and that was really it. I started thinking about shopping in the women's section as well as the men's section, and maybe learning makeup, but then these sort of impulses died down pretty quickly. Just right before I got to school, I stopped thinking about it, and I think my thought was that I wasn't genderqueer enough or something like that. It seemed like I hadn't earned my stripes, and that deep down I was just an effeminate cis person interloping in this space that didn't belong to me. And maybe that is true. I'm still not entirely sure. Even when I identified as genderqueer for that short time, I closely identified more with demi labels, which would still mean I'm mostly male, but not entirely. And my brain must have gone, but mostly might as well be entirely male. You're not real. And I've had a certain uncertainty that I've dealt with in that regard, and also with sexual orientation as well. I don't know right now. I don't really know, and that's really the point here, is that I'm not sure who I am, really. I guess I haven't had enough practice at denying the parts of me that are denying me back. Part of me is convinced that I'm making a much bigger deal out of this than I deserve, and that other queer folks have had a much more difficult path to discovery and validation, and I'm just a privileged cis white male middle class interloper, like I mentioned. But I'd like this video to be sort of a message to myself saying, cut the shit. Just stop. Just don't. I mean, I'm still not entirely sure what labels fit the various aspects of my identity, or if labels are even necessary. I'm still trying to get it all sorted, but suffice it to say, at this moment in time, I've never felt this uncertain about any aspect of myself. I know I enjoy button-up shirts with funky designs and leftist politics and music theory, but in terms of that deeper understanding of me, I don't have the answers. But I'm trying not to see that as a bad thing. I'm trying to view this questioning process as less of a negative, less of this, I'm perfectly fine and all these problems are just bullshit and I should never question them. I already tried that back in high school, and all that happened was just that it came back 10 times stronger. Instead, I just want to think of this as an opportunity for discovery, for growth, and for a deeper understanding of myself. And I'm not quite there yet. I don't have all the answers, but I think that's fine. I'm gonna take a bit of a big step here, and feel free to spread this to anybody you see interacting with me on Twitter. I've already mentioned this on Twitter, but I am non-binary. I think that's just the truth of the situation. Exactly how or what, like, specific terms, I can't say for sure. But that's my truth, I suppose. And just for practice for a while, I'm going to be taking the opportunity to refer to myself neutrally as often as possible. From here on for a while, you can use those good old they, them pronouns for me. I'm sure I'd be fine with he, him, or whatever, but this is really more of like a practice for myself, just to really get used to thinking of myself in this way. And I think I'm going to come out the other side of this feeling a lot more fulfilled and confident. I will say that the support on Twitter, I kind of came out. I don't know if it's really coming out, because I'm not, like, really, it's still really uncertain for me, but the support on Twitter and in my Discord server and everybody else that I told has been extraordinary, and I can't thank any of you enough. I think someday, maybe next week, maybe a year from now, I'll have the answers eventually. Or maybe I'll come to terms with the fact that maybe there are no answers. We're gonna get through it. Consider this me saying I am NB, and happy Pride, and stay legend, and I'm gonna edit this now.